Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're diving deep into describing different cultures in English with Sarah.
It's gonna be fun.
It is, yeah. And this deep dive is perfect for anyone looking to expand their vocabulary and understanding of the world.
Sure, for sure.
So
we're going beyond simple adjectives today.
Yeah.
We're gonna uncover some really powerful vocabulary that can help you paint a vivid picture of a culture's unique identity.
I love that.
From those ancient traditions
Yeah.
to modern day festivals and everything in between.
Yeah, speaking of pictures, one of the words that really stood out to me was ancient. It's not just about age, is it? It evokes this sense of history and tradition that runs deep.
Absolutely. Describing a culture as ancient really does emphasize the weight of its past.
Yeah.
And it's this reminder that their present is built on centuries, sometimes millennia, of shared experiences and beliefs.
That's such a crucial point
Yeah.
because it helps us avoid judging a culture
Right.
based solely on our modern perspective.
Exactly.
We can start to see their customs and practices as part of a much larger,
Yes.
richer tapestry.
And just like a tapestry, cultures can be colorful in so many ways.
Yes.
Not just literally in terms of their clothing or art, but also figuratively. Colorful implies vibrancy, a sense of energy and life that's captivating.
Oh, I completely agree. Like when you think of a Spanish festival like La Tomatina, where everyone's throwing tomatoes at each other, you can't help but picture that explosion of color and energy.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a dull affair.
It certainly sounds lively. And that brings us to another interesting word, fascinating.
Yeah.
When something is fascinating, it draws you in.
Right.
It makes you want to learn more. It suggests a depth that goes beyond superficial observation.
It's that aha moment, right?
Yes.
When you discover something unexpected and intriguing about another culture,
Right.
it's what keeps us curious and engaged.
But cultural exploration isn't always about sunshine and festivals. Sometimes we encounter elements that might be considered old-fashioned.
Right.
This doesn't necessarily mean bad, but it highlights areas where a culture's values might clash with more modern viewpoints.
It's like when you revisit your hometown after being away for a while, some things feel comfortingly familiar,
Yeah.
while others seem stuck in the past.
That sense of familiarity can be a powerful way to describe a culture, too.
Yeah.
It adopes a feeling of belonging, shared understanding,
Yeah.
and a connection to something larger than ourselves.
I think we all crave that feeling of belonging in some way. But it's also important to recognize that cultures are rarely monolithic.
Right.
The words varied and eclectic really stood out to me because they emphasize the diversity and complexity within a culture.
Indeed. Varied suggests a multitude of perspectives, beliefs, and practices within a single cultural group.
Right.
And eclectic implies that a culture has been shaped by a fusion of different influences over time.
It's like the United States often described as a melting pot. You have this incredible mix of traditions, languages, and cuisines, all contributing to American culture.
Exactly, and that blend of influences is constantly evolving, making it even more crucial to go beyond general descriptions and really delve into the specifics of what makes each culture unique.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the why behind the what.
Yes.
For example, the word caring popped up a few times. It suggests a culture that prioritizes relationships and the well-being of its people.
Indeed. It speaks to the values that underpin a culture. A caring culture might emphasize community empathy and support for one another.
Like in many indigenous cultures,
Yes.
where there's a strong emphasis on elders and a deep respect for the interconnectedness of all living things, that level of care and consideration is deeply moving.
It is. And closely related to caring is supportive.
Right.
Which emphasizes a sense of community and shared goals. It suggests a culture where people work together for the collective good.
It's like how in many Mediterranean cultures, family is paramount.
Yes.
There's a strong sense of responsibility towards one another.
Right.
And everyone pitches in to help.
It really speaks to the strength of their social fabric. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you might encounter cultures that are described as mysterious.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean they're inherently secretive, but it suggests a certain level of intrigue or unfamiliarity.
It's like those ancient cultures shrouded in myths and legends.
Right.
Their customs and beliefs might seem enigmatic or difficult to grasp from an outsider's perspective, prompting us to dig deeper and uncover their hidden meanings.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Even in our hyper-connected world, there are still pockets of cultural mystery waiting to be explored.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this journey of language and cultural discovery so captivating.
It definitely is. Now, as we've been talking about all these powerful words, I'm curious, what words resonate most with you when you think about describing different cultures?
That's a great question. For me, the word fusion holds particular significance. It speaks to the dynamic interplay between cultures, how they're constantly evolving and blending with each other.
I love that. It's like how fusion cuisine takes elements from different culinary traditions and creates something entirely new and exciting.
Precisely. And it's not just limited to food. We see fusion in art, music, fashion.
Yeah.
It's this ongoing process of cultural exchange and innovation.
Speaking of food, one of the things that really fascinated me was the concept of gastronomy. It's not just about eating to survive. It's about savoring flavors, appreciating culinary artistry. It elevates food to a whole new level.
Absolutely. Gastronomy suggests a culture that values the art of preparing and enjoying good food.
Yeah.
It's about the whole experience, the ingredients, the techniques, the presentation,
Right.
the social aspects of dining.
It's like those cultures where meals are a celebration, a time to connect with loved ones and savor the richness of their culinary heritage.
And often those traditions center around specific delicacies,
Yeah.
those unique dishes that embody a culture's culinary identity.
Oh, for sure. Like when you think of Japan, sushi often comes to mind. Or in France, it might be escargot. There are those iconic foods that represent a culture's culinary heritage.
And speaking of cultural identity, one of the things that struck me was how Switzerland, being at the crossroads of so many European cultures,
Yeah.
exhibits this remarkable diversity in its traditions and customs.
Yeah, it's like a cultural tapestry woven from threads of various European influences. You can see it in their languages, their architecture, their cuisine. It's a fascinating blend of the old and the new.
It's a testament of how geography can shape cultural identity.
Right.
Switzerland's location at the heart of Europe has made it a melting pot of different traditions,
Right.
resulting in a unique cultural landscape.
And it makes you wonder how those different influences have shaped the Swiss identity over time. Have they managed to preserve their own distinct traditions while also embracing elements from their neighbors? It's a fascinating question to ponder.
It is, and it highlights the dynamic nature of culture. It's
Yeah.
not static. It's constantly evolving and adapting.
You know, one thing that really struck me as we've been discussing these different cultures is the power of language itself. It's like a window into a culture's soul, revealing their unique ways of thinking and expressing themselves.
Absolutely. Language is more than just a tool for communication.
Right.
It's a reflection of a culture's values, beliefs, and worldview.
Like the way certain cultures have specific words or phrases that don't have direct translations in other languages.
Yes.
It shows how language is deeply intertwined with cultural context.
Exactly. And it reminds us that there's no one right way to speak a language.
Right.
There are all these beautiful variations that reflect the diversity of human experience.
It's about embracing those nuances and appreciating the richness they bring to our understanding of different cultures. Like Singlish, a blend of Singaporean, and English is a great example of how language adapts to a particular cultural setting.
It's a fascinating example of how language evolves within a specific cultural context. It's like a linguistic fingerprint unique to that culture.
And it shows how language is a living, breathing thing, constantly changing and adapting to the needs of its speakers. Speaking of expressing oneself, we can't forget about the role of music and dance in understanding different cultures. The source material mentioned everything from folk music to ballet to opera, such a diverse range of expression.
Absolutely. Music and dance are universal languages that transcend words. They allow us to connect with a culture's emotions, stories, and history on a visceral level.
It's like when you hear a soulful blues song from the American South, you can almost feel the weight of history.
Yes.
The struggles and triumphs of the people who created that music. And when you watch a vibrant flamenco performance in Spain, you're witnessing a centuries-old tradition that expresses passion, pride, and cultural identity. It's amazing how these art forms can transcend language barriers and connect us on a deeper level. They tap into something universal within us,
Right.
something that resonates with your shared humanity.
Precisely. They speak to the common threads that bind us together despite our cultural differences.
Now, as we've been exploring in all these different aspects of culture, it's clear that it's a complex and multifaceted topic. What are some of the challenges you've encountered in trying to understandably describe different cultures? I think one of the biggest challenges is avoiding those stereotypical generalizations It's easy to fall into the trap of oversimplifying a culture,
Oh, yeah.
but that rarely captures its true essence.
It's so true. Every culture is this rich tapestry of diverse perspectives,
Yeah.
beliefs, and ways of life. We can't assume that everyone within a cultural group thinks or behaves the same way.
So how do we avoid those pitfalls? What are some tips for describing cultures in a way that's both insightful and respectful?
One key is to focus on specific details and examples rather than making broad, sweeping statements.
Okay, so instead of saying like,
Yeah.
people in this culture are very hospitable,
Right.
you could share a personal anecdote, like, when I visited this country, I was struck by how warmly I was welcomed. People went out of their way to make me feel comfortable, offering me tea, sharing stories, even inviting me to join their family for dinner.
Yes, those specific details create a much richer, more nuanced picture than any general statement could.
Right.
It shows you've actually engaged with the culture on a personal level.
It's about showing rather than just telling, right?
Exactly.
Painting that vivid picture with words.
And another crucial tip is to be mindful of our own biases and assumptions.
Yeah.
We all come to the table with our own cultural lens,
Yeah.
and that can shape our perceptions without us even realizing it.
It's tough to acknowledge those biases, but it's so important.
It is.
We have to recognize that our way of seeing the world isn't the only way.
Absolutely. It's about approaching other cultures with humility and a willingness to learn, to recognize that there's always more to discover, more to understand.
It's a journey, not a destination, and that makes it all the more exciting. As we wrap up this incredible deep dive, what key takeaways would you like our listeners to remember?
I think the most important takeaway is that language is a powerful tool for understanding and appreciating different cultures, but it's not just about memorizing vocabulary.
Right.
It's about using those words thoughtfully, respectfully, and with a genuine desire to connect.
It's about building bridges of understanding, not walls of division. Recognizing our shared humanity while also celebrating the beautiful tapestry of cultures that make our world so vibrant.
Beautifully put. The more we learn about other cultures, the more we enrich our own lives and expand our understanding of what it means to be human.
Well said. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into describing different cultures in English. Thank you so much for joining me today, Sarah. It's been an absolute pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine, Mike. I always enjoy these insightful conversations.
And to all our wonderful listeners out there, if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more fascinating explorations into the world of language. Until next time, happy exploring.